So I haven't really been on Twitter over the last month. I took a intentional break, and today was sort of my first day back scrolling through some things. And I noticed that the Bee has a new opinion writer in Robin Epley, I believe is how the last name is pronounced.
Never heard of her.
Right.
And just like very thrilled at what I read today, where a piece where she calls out our favorite supervisor on the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors, Sue Frost.
Darth Susan.
Darth
Wow.
Susan.
As Flo likes to call her.
The Monster Sue. Who has to sit behind, her own in like a little like containment chamber the board, because Sue, who is a nurse, refuses to wear a mask.
Right.
Total anti-vaxxer.
Right.
I'm still it seems
thinking other names. Susferatu.
I love it. I say, who, Sue?
Sue Skinstein. That's not good. No. Work in progress. Anyway,
we keep workshopping it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Robin, who is actually an old friend of mine, she just came in from Mendocino County, where she was running two media outlets on her own.
Wow.
And so I think it's really exciting to have her back in town. I didn't know, you never know kind of what a new opinion writer is going to do.
Totally.
And she came out swinging against Darth Susan.
Yeah.
Like, I was reading this so I was reading it this morning around like 5:30, and my jaw was just dropped. Like, I mean, I love it. I love to think about it. I'm actively thinking about it. And
now I'm thinking about it.
Right.
I don't know, like, have we ever, or when, like recently in all of this, I was gonna say a swear, have we had someone that just like brand new comes out and it's like, here we go, and we know how Sue responds to this kind of stuff, right? She'll have something to say about it.
Most definitely.
And I just love that she's being called, like you said, came out swinging. I also really like this picture of her sitting behind her.
Sue.
Of Sue Frost, sitting
in her fishbowl.
Yeah.
She called it the cone of shame, I think Robin did.
I think that's right.
Wow. Okay.
Also, one of my I think one of the other things that made my jaw drop during this whole thing was that Sue Frost, like during this meeting that Robin is talking about, during public comment, she's like, wait, there's this person who has like a very busy practice. They need to go up to the front of the line. And it's a doctor who has a medical practice. They're very, very busy recommending the ivermectin stuff. What is that? It's a horse dewormer.
Yeah.
That people are taking for COVID. And vitamin D and daily aspirin. So Sue is like, wait,
wow,
this guy has to get back and write veterinary prescriptions to humans.
Dewormers to humans. Yeah.
Wow.
Just
gotta deworm those GOP folks.
Deworm them.
I mean, that's legit.
Yeah, totally.
If there is a God, I won't say the rest. You can't prescribe horse prescriptions to humans, so there's bound to be some medical malpractice somewhere in there. But in the process of that malpractice, if a person, the thoughts in my mind at this moment.
the universe will do what it will do. I guess
Absolutely.
we'll leave it at that. Although I do hear that he is in the process of losing some sort of licensing, which I think is a very good thing. So
Oh, surprise, surprise.
yeah. Anyway, Robin, thank you for a fantastic piece.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it.
Sue, thank you for being just an unending fount of absurdity and life for this bored young midtown man. I'm not that young anymore.
Let's get real.
Yeah, I'm 37.
You're young.
Thank you.
I think anytime we have a moment on the show where we're like, oh, we don't have an opener, what should we talk about? We're just like, what did Sue do this week?
That's 100% true.
And then ask the question, Sue who? Like, because she speaks from this odd place, and it's like you're not connected to the people, and therefore, how are you representing? So yeah, I can rant on about Sue who for, yeah. She talks like a stream of consciousness novel. She's like a character
100.
in
The Sound of and the Fury, and Trump was kind of like that too.
Very much.
And I kind of enjoy it.
Yeah.
But well, I'm glad Sue is wildly outnumbered on that day. It's not that I'm too happy with what other folks are doing up there, but Robin, thank you, welcome home, and thank you for a great piece.
I loved it.
Shall we begin?
Yeah, let's do this thing.
All right.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You have Kempa.
And Shannon.
And Sonia.
Hello, Sonia. How you doing?
I am, not too tired, and I'm present.
I love that.
Yeah.
We should probably tell folks who you are. Folks, I want to introduce you to Sonia Lewis, an expert in educational equity. You've been in the classroom for over 20 years. I've known of you for a long time before I got to know you. You've been just a very active member of the community fighting the good fight. I know you were central in recent years in the struggle for Black lives. Yes. And so I'm really excited to have you on tonight. Obviously, we don't have Flo. Flo is running the Measure U committee. And we don't have Skylar because Skylar is out doing Skylar things over in City Hall.
Yeah.
But
Skylar's doing Skylar things.
I'll trade them for you any day, Sonia. I'm doing this new thing where I want to I sort of insult every other host who's not on an episode. So that's my dig at them. Like, okay, fine. We got Sonia. We don't need you guys. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. We're going to be discussing some really important topics. And I think as an expert in equity, your perspective and the how much you've been steeped in this work over the years will be really rich for us today.
Perfect. Thank you. It's my honor for being here and being able to just lend a voice to, the platform and the listeners and chime in on something that's incredibly huge and important right now. And it's an urgent issue.
Absolutely. Well, let's get right into it. This is a topic that I think a number of folks on the left in the Sacramento region have been holding their tongues on for a few weeks. And I think it's time for us to start to take a look at this head on, see how this conversation has really just been distorted and how local folks, particularly local moderates, have allowed a far right mudslinging group to take over a discourse and try and ruin one young great teacher's life. I'm of course talking about Gabriel Geip, a history teacher up in Natomas Unified School District. Let me give a little background for folks who don't know about this. First of all, a lot of folks know Gabe. I know of Gabe. If anyone's been a part of any movement building, I think in the last few years, they've probably met him. He's a good guy who does a lot of really amazing work, and he's really invested in the civic process. This is why he teaches the civic process, an AP college level class at this high school, right? So Gabe got the Project Veritas treatment. Let me give a little background on what Project Veritas is. I was looking at more or less the first 3 paragraphs of their Wikipedia page, and it's very well sourced, and it sort of gives you the background on it. Let me tell you what they're about. Project Veritas is an American far-right activist group founded by James O'Keefe in 2010. The group produces deceptively edited videos of its undercover operations, which use secret recordings in an effort to discredit mainstream media organizations and progressive groups. Project Veritas also uses entrapment to generate bad publicity for its targets and has propagated disinformation and conspiracy theories in its videos and operations. They target things like Planned Parenthood. They targeted the Association of Community Organizations for Reform Now, ACORN, which now, if you know of the great group ACE here in California, that's sort of the child of ACORN, and a lot of amazing people work there. They attack NPR, CNN, the Washington Post, it goes on and on. But basically, these are some deeply immoral folks who are tied with far-right groups, white nationalists such as former President Donald Trump. Betsy DeVos has been tied to the funding. They're not good people. They don't operate in good faith. And really no media outlet or school official should engage with them in good faith. And that is not what happened with Chris Evans of the Natomas Unified School District, the superintendent. So taking a step back, sorry if I'm talking too long, but I'm just trying to give everybody what happened. So over the summer, Gabriel got the Project Veritas treatment. There was a guy came in, claimed he was moving to the area and he wanted his son to have a progressive educational experience. He sat down with Gabe and filmed this private interview. It was heavily edited so much in a way that it would rile up conservative media in the US, right? What were some of the things they recorded Gabe saying? One of them being, I have an Antifa flag in my classroom, which he does, which
he has for a long time.
Yes. Apparently it's bad to be against fascists. I love that.
It was also about, like, they recorded him saying that he keeps a calendar of like local direct action, and students can go to those direct actions and receive extra credit if they were to submit a reflection. He talked about, I can't remember the word he used, revolutionary. Was that it? He said I have 180 days
to mold and shape.
Right. Yeah.
To turn my students into revolutionaries.
Right. I mean, and again, like the video is so edited that it's like chopped up. You don't even necessarily know what the question was, that like it's just chopped up bits and pieces of a conversation.
Which, were we to see the full conversation, obviously it would be a nothing burger, but this is what Project Veritas does, right? So they release this video, they get the far right, they get all the downwardly mobile white males living in their parents' basements all riled up on 4chan and have them doxing Gabe and have them sending their death threats. They're sending the death threats to the schools as well, you know, the school that he teaches at and people who work there. And what happened is the school board and the superintendent, Chris Evans, folded.
Yeah.
They folded immediately. And they said, we are going to start the process of firing this guy. This is against our ideals, blah, blah, blah. They claim they found some things in his classroom that are grounds for the firing process. We can get into that. And obviously you look at everything they said and it's just, that is not how any of this works in a state that has a robust teachers union, as I think the school board will find out. But all of this is happening, right? So they claim they're beginning the process of firing him thanks to this national level push from proto-fascists online, right? A few outlets came out discussing this, a few locally. The good ones didn't name Gabe, but at this point he's already been named.
Yeah.
You know, we're okay saying his name at this point. A few did, and the way it was couched was very bizarre in some outlets. And Sonia, part of the reason I reached out to you to come on was because of an interview you had on this topic in Capital Public Radio. Can you tell us sort of what you said, what that interview was about, and why this was important to you to speak out?
You know, it was extremely important to me to speak out on this issue because every day that I wake, I am trying my best to leverage equity in a way that eradicates at every level what racism can be and how it is perpetuated in the education system. With almost 20 years of lived experience in traditional classrooms across this state, and included Georgia, I have seen some things and I've had to do some things in order to equip my students with information that would serve them better at the end of the day, based on what they said their needs and desires were, right? I would do a survey at the beginning of every school year based on the students who were assigned to me. What are some things outside of the expectation of learning this history or social studies subject would you want to learn about and think are important in the society we live in? And hands down, I would get responses like, I want to know how to get a job. I want to know how to engage in the voting process. I want to know what are my rights if, you know, something happens to me and the police, or I want to know if I were to get fired on said job, what kind of recourse would I have? And these are things that young high school kids are really and truly thinking about. And so sometimes we get caught up in what the curriculum and standard is for these subjects that we just don't even consider where our students are in their lived experiences, their birth and circumstances that they come to the table with. And we almost forget that they're human. We almost forget that they will soon be adults. And that is important for us to impart something that they can take with them. I still, you know, I've been removed from the classroom for 12 years now, and I have students, former students, who call me up. How am I doing? Can you give me a referral or a reference for this? Just to make sure that they keep that level of connection. And so when I heard about this story, the first thing that came to mind was, wow, that was totally me in the classroom, bringing in outside resources, making sure that kids had experiences that were beyond the textbook, because the textbook lies. And that was a huge part of my philosophy in the classroom. Let's debunk this textbook and figure out where we can find resources to counter. And then when we counter it, how can we use this information when you all become adults?
Right.
And so one of the things that stood out in that interview with Gabe was the 180 days to shape young people into revolutionaries. And I was like, oh my God, I would have never framed it like that. But yeah, like at the end of the day, that's the goal. And so I do equity work with districts and organizations around town. And oftentimes I will hear the teacher who is pushing back just a little bit saying, my job isn't to make students, turn students into social justice warriors. And I'm like, why not? Like you're giving them the ability to advocate and understand agency for self and others who have less privilege than they do. And so revolution at the core means change. And could we all just agree that we need change in the majority of systems that we all rely on because they are very steeped in racist, white supremacist methodology? And so that's all I'm asking people to consider is that what's one wrong with being a revolutionary? Because you know, if you live in certain states, you will no longer be able to be educated on Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks because they were too revolutionary for this country and to continue to teach that. And
are you discussing like critical race theory, the fight against that? Right.
Yeah. And so that's the pushback. And so as a former educator, I want educators to at least know that there are folks out there fighting the good fight and standing behind them, recognizing that there's a huge fear factor, right, with standing up and speaking out. And so I get it. I get why a lot of teachers don't, right? But at the same time, it's like our future is in their hands. And so as teachers, we really and truly have to do something extraordinary to leave with our students so that they can remember.
Yeah. And first of all, I love all of that. On top of that, there is the fact that Gabe has had folks from the administration at the school come into his class over and over again over the years. And he teaches curriculum. He teaches what he's supposed to teach. And then he teaches them how to think. He teaches them governmental systems that obviously are not discussed within this country. He is doing a service by doing that. Anything he discusses, anything he does outside the classroom, that's his prerogative.
Right.
And some secretly recorded conversation is something that school boards, if they're going to try and take him down for something like that, or anybody, any teacher, because if it's not Gabe, it's going to be someone else, right?
Right.
And I think that that's what's concerning to me. And that's why it was really powerful to see you speak up, because this has the potential to have a chilling effect on any public educator who wants to be a part of the civic process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, teachers are supposedly considered, you know, the bread and butter of this country. You know, it's like that job that, you know, become a teacher or a cop or a doctor, right? Or a firefighter. And it's strange to think that the shaping of the minds of young people, which is such a fragile and vulnerable opportunity every day that you walk into a classroom, coupled with the fact that depending on the school system and the district that you're in the urban environment or the not so urban environment, right, that you may be teaching in, whereby young people are actually wanting to think beyond what's being like, let me cut your brain right here open and pour in what information I want you to have. Don't do anything with it. Just be able to regurgitate it on a test.
Right. So learn by rote. That's all I want you to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, he, well, I guess maybe I want to ask you this personally. People are afraid to speak out for him, right? Teachers throughout the school district, I'm sure, teachers throughout our region, throughout the state. but it's really, really important that I think someone like him gets solidarity.
Yeah.
The reason I think people are afraid to speak out is because there is this squad of gremlins, right? Like I said, these downwardly mobile white guys in their parents' basements on 4chan, you know, ready to dox you, ready to come after you. Why did you feel safe to do that?
You know what? I was a whistleblower. I discovered some improprieties in the last school assignment that I was teaching in. And I fought that fight tooth and nail. It cost me a bout with depression and anxiety. It gave me a sense of peace. I have never just been a person to walk in a spirit of fear. And so if I felt like something in my gut is wrong, I've always been that person to speak out on it. But I'm also always asked, Sonia, why don't you have a fear about these kind of things? I just believe that right is right and wrong is wrong. And, for the love of humanity, and if I am going to stand on the integrity that I've built, for the entire adult existence of my life, I don't want to be a hypocrite in that vein. And so I don't want to be quiet when someone else is struggling out there alone, because I know what that feels like. And so in being a whistleblower, I think it gives you a kind of courage to say, F the system to a certain degree, right? That I knew that going into teaching and education that I would never transcend over into the administrative side, because I saw such a huge disconnect from where administrators connect with students.
Right.
And my job, I wanted it to be a direct connection to students. And so there are a lot of moving parts as to why I just don't operate in a spirit of fear. At the end of the day, I think it's like, what really and truly could they do to me? Like, in having my last teaching experience ripped from, like, grasp what I consider a very fruitful and progressive opportunity to grow something into something really, really bigger, it was snatched away from me. And so I don't think that anyone can snatch anything else away from me. And so I just live in that spirit of, okay, I will show you. And there is a way to garner traction and get support by just one person speaking up. Other people are listening. And so I'm glad that there are folks that I can reach out to and tug at their heartstrings a little bit and say, hey, now you know that this is wrong. I need for you to do something. And hopefully the integrity piece that I've built in relationships that I've built in this city and state will do some justice in this issue and keeping teachers with a semblance of hope that there is a possibility that we can do better by students and by the education system.
Would you encourage other educators to speak out on something like this?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. Like, you don't realize what's in the power of teaching if you have a fear of what the repercussions would be for telling the truth. And I mean, I if we connect the dots, that's the fear that I think that a lot of educators have, not just around trying to be the best stewards at teaching the truth, but at the same time of not shaking up the status quo. And I think that we have to do something. We, at the height of the pandemic, realized that there was a collision of two pandemics, right? And that while folks have been talking about racism since the beginning of this country, there was this heightened experience folks were visibly exposed to with COVID. And so, yeah, we have to do some things different, and it's urgent that we do it now.
Yeah. I want to bring it back to Gabriel guy real quick. I want to tell people something about him that you certainly might not have seen in the news stories. This was a profoundly loved teacher at this high school.
Yeah.
wildly. This school had a student-made video, 5-minute video, extolling his virtues, right? How great this history teacher is, on their website, to say how great this school district is. And he was even loved roundly by his colleagues, his other teachers. He was so well liked that last year he was voted to give the graduation speech at the end of the year. You don't just give that to anyone.
Right.
So this is the kind of person we're talking about. And if you think that this is some nefarious being, you know, slinking around a classroom, like, you know, trying to create harm, it's bullshit.
Just not the case.
Yeah. And so look at that, and then look at what happened. They take this video off the school's website, right? This 5-minute video about just how amazing of a teacher he is. And what they do a couple days later is they put up a 30-minute interview between Superintendent Chris Evans and a Project Veritas, quote unquote, reporter, right? I don't know if Chris Evans knows this, but this reporter once on video said that Jews own the banks, right? This is Project Veritas, which both the group itself and its founder, James O'Keefe, have been kicked off of Twitter for similar disgusting behavior. These are the people that Superintendent Chris Evans aligns himself with. It's just absolutely disgusting. And it's disgusting to think that he would use their video as anything, any sort of thermometer or barometer of the ethics of who Gabriel Geip is, right? So here we are, and here we have Chris Evans claiming that, you know, they found terrible things in his classroom. They did a run through of it, you know, within a day of Project Veritas, you know, sending out all of these threats and, you know, asking them to, saying like, oh, do this, interview us, blah, 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 or else. And they claim they found enough in his classroom to fire him. I haven't spent much time in the educational system, but Sonia, is this how the disciplinary process with a teacher goes, even if there is anything in there, which I won't even concede yet?
Right. So there are some due processes that teachers have, and there are some support systems that would normally seem like very reasonable, right? And I think of, in the times that we are living in right now, that there are cases around this state in particular where teachers had things that were brought to the attention either of parents, students, or administration, and a verbal warning was given to that teacher, or an ask was made, can you take that item down? For example, a pride flag. I don't see anything wrong with a pride flag, but there are teachers being asked to take down pride flags. There was a teacher who was asked not so long ago during distance learning to take down a background that had BLM on the avatar's, you know, t-shirt. And so these are the times that we are living in, where people's fears trump the truth. And so because we're afraid of addressing the truth, we would rather allow for fears to continue to perpetuate the systems that have been literally and figuratively killing folks since the beginning of this country. And I mean, I can't be more plain than that. And so, yes, there's a due process. And I would say that Gabe has a whole lot of backing in the sense of legal support that he will eventually come, you know, that will come out in the investigation in the time that this will go through, if Natomas is interested in making that official firing, right?
They have so, they have nothing to stand on.
No.
If they try to go through with this, it's just going to be a master class in them getting humiliated in the courtroom, I think.
Right.
It was so like watching the board meeting on this whole on Gabe and the Project Veritas and the whole thing. And I think when Sonia was talking about like acting out of fear, you can tell that that's exactly what this is, right? Like this is all reactionary parents or grown-ups, because they're grown-ups tied to students who are so reactionary and they were reacting in like verbally violent ways in this meeting, like threatening, just completely shitting all over this teacher's character, who we've already established that he was well respected both by the administration and by students. And the meeting itself was not facilitated in a professional or organized manner by any means, right? Like they, at a certain point, they may as well have had torches and pitchforks, the parents, right? Just like storming the podium. And I mean, at one point there was a parent who just like got, and not very many people masked, gets up and just starts yelling.
A number of these people weren't even parents. These are just far right people.
No, they weren't associated with the school district. And so we have to be very clear on that these are folks that are coming out of, some
of their basements.
Yeah. Some woods somewhere, to assert this feeling of fear that someone is going to take something from me if we tell the truth. And that is so far from what one, Gabe on an individual level was doing in the classroom, but two, what collectively things like ethnic studies and critical race theories even are attempting to do to leverage the playing field when we're talking about the lies and the erasure and the silencing of folks who have literally built this country. And so it's a matter of fear. I am assured that it's fear, and it's a selfish fear. It's a selfish fear in the sense that folks are afraid of what might be taken from them. And I want to just lift this idea up, is that we are in the richest resource country in the world. We do not live in a deficit. And there is a possibility to take care of every American citizen in this country with what we have. And so that's not a matter of taking something from someone else. That is a matter of what the resources are in this country. And so we have to get out of this idea that me, that Donald Trump syndrome of, if I can't have it, no one else can.
Yeah. So he's, it appears that both the school district and this teacher, Gabriel Geip, are kind of in a holding pattern for the next few weeks. But I can't help but look at other instances, just even here in the state, where the protocol was so different.
Yeah.
You think of the one woman a couple months back here in Sacramento. I believe she's a white woman who repeatedly used the N-word with her students. And she currently still is being paid, right? She's still on the payroll by her school district.
Yes, she is on paid administrative leave. She will not be in the classroom. However, she is still a paid employee.
Right.
And so that begins to, for me as an educator, that I question, like, one, this is the tale of two teachers. And if you are going to say that there is an offense that is fireable immediately, I would think that using the N-word in any capacity in the education space, that it deserves firing. That's my opinion, right? But there needs to be a standard. There needs to be a standard and a protocol across the board of what is egregious and not egregious, right? And if we decide that something is egregious beyond the scope of something that physically and emotionally harms a student, we have a number of cases across this country where we can see teachers and resource officers come into classrooms and physically harm students, right? That's egregious to me. We see cases all of the time where teachers or administrators or persons in positions of power use those positions to trap kids into sexual relationships. That's egregious. But if we're talking about how we're educating students and it's not leading them to be violent or egregious in community, then we should be able to have a conversation about what the expectation is in the classroom, making it extremely clear and plain. But a part of what we do know for an AP, which is a college level, class, government class, is that it is about civics and civic involvement. And so for me, civic involvement is, our ability to engage in community activity. And some of those engagements are politically driven, like, do you vote? Some of those are strategically connected to your community, like serving on a jury. Some of them are economically, driven, like, how are you contributing to the economy and the tax base? All of those are civic engagement. And volunteering in your community is civic engagement. And so if that's radical and if that's revolutionary, I think that we need to pick another bone to fight over, because at the end of the day, students are going to be way better for those experiences because they're going to see beyond their own, doorsteps and the shoes that they walk in.
Yeah. It's funny to me, I look at Superintendent Chris Evans sitting down with, Project Veritas, funded by these proto-fascists, right?
Yeah.
And I look at the school district's letter about Gabriel, right before they said they were going to start the firing process. And they say things like, well, we need to tell both sides of the story, right? So it's like, oh, so, we can tell the the against fascism side. I guess Chris wants us to tell the pro-fascism side of the story in our classrooms today, right? You look at any of the arguments of any of the things that they found in this classroom, and it all seems very silly. They talk about stamps with Kim Jong-un on them and Castro, and you see the stamps. I've seen them published at different media outlets. They're obviously jokes. One of them is a straight up meme lifted from the internet. That is offensive. That is grounds for firing. Bullshit, Chris. Yeah. You look at anything that they claim was on his wall. Any of those things are symbols of something, right? And they're discussing, this, like the LGBT flag, right? The Antifa flag, right? They said he's got, a poster of Chairman Mao, but like it is once more a history and civics classroom.
Absolutely.
We put things on our
AP
walls.
Level, AP level, like that's.
You can put that on your wall for any number of reasons. I have a JFK poster on my wall. I don't like JFK. I just have it because Gary Webb, the Pulitzer winner, had it over his desk back when he was at the Sacramento News and Review, right? Like it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
What else were they saying? Oh, they're talking about him like buying things and stuff. And like, I'm interested to see where all this pans out because it really seems like the school board doesn't have a leg to stand on. I have put out a public records request for all communications with all board members, as well as with the superintendent. I will continue to put out more and more with others in the school district regarding this issue, because it strikes me as something that's just an egregious misuse of protocol. And for somebody who bows to far right groups like Project Veritas, I think the people of Sacramento have to have a real discussion on leadership at Natomas Unified.
Absolutely. I was
Totally.
going to say exactly the same thing, is that if we are going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on superintendent salaries, we really
Right.
need to be very cautious on who we are paying those taxpayer dollars to. Because at the end of the day, if someone is sitting down with racist, right-wing individual hate groups, right? We have to question where the direction of the said leadership is going for a district that is very diverse, a district that has a lot of potential, but has had a lot of challenges. And so if they don't want to continue to have those challenges, I would say, as an experienced teacher in the classroom, as well as an expert when it comes to educational equity, that we begin to peel back the onion and look at what representation looks like. And here's, I lead by a 13% rule. There's a 13%. So when we look at the spectrum from white to black, and if we can agree that because racism is what it is, the target is towards the characterization or mischaracterization of the Black community because of the way slavery has panned out in this country. And so everyone who falls in between there can experience some racism and some trauma and oppression, but we have to agree that, at least from a racist perspective, that anti-Blackness is the worst form of racism. And with that being said, we need to begin to practice a 13% rule there. 13% of the population is the Black community that has been the most marginalized in this community, and the target and outcomes of these racist practices. And so if we are not, at the very minimum, putting folks in place that look like the students who are representative of that school district, we need to begin to look at the representation of a city, a county, a state, when we talk about who's at the table. And so Chris Evans, to me, does not represent me. And I live in the Sacramento area. And I would urge anyone who is sending their children to Natomas Unified School Districts to begin to question a leader who's having conversations with someone and a group that represents such hate.
Yeah, I don't know how better.
There's no better way. Yeah.
You know, there was another topic we were considering discussing tonight, but I don't think we're going to get to it. So let me just mention real quick that Media Matters did a piece. They did a study on how Sacramento media covered this story and on Project Veritas, on Natomas Unified, and on Gabriel Geip. And I don't think they're wrong in that generally Sacramento media failed. They named him at a time when they really shouldn't have, that early on.
Yeah.
You know, there have been stories of teachers putting progressive things up on their walls, and Fox News came for them. And when Fox News went to the administration to try and get their name and get them fired, the school board, the administrators said, A, we will not give you the name. Right. B, we've gone through a simple process of asking them to take this thing down. And that's it. That was it. That to me sounds like how a school board should be handling something like this. Right. But no, you know, a number of local TV stations named him personally. A number of them legitimized Project Veritas and this little piece of shit, James O'Keefe, and legitimized the storyline. I believe one station referred to when the school board walked out of the meeting, when there was severe aggression against them, right, by these white supremacists. They referred to them as storming out of the school board meeting. Wow. This is it's pretty blatant stuff. Yeah. A couple folks did it right. I think I think it was a young, I think it might have even been like a student reporter or student intern at SAC-B, nailed it, and did not name him. I believe she really, really described Project Veritas for what it is. It was just reporting that was of a quality of someone beyond her years, but also of someone like, if you're a white 45-year-old reporter at the B, you are writing a different story and you're getting it wrong. So props to her for doing that well. I think the Cap Radio / SAC Observer reporter handled it pretty well too. And so I don't know either of them personally, but I just wanted to say, like, who did some good stuff out there too. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, any other thoughts on sort of how the media ran with it or didn't? I know when something like this happens, there's always a big question of how much oxygen do you give this?
Right.
When there's a huge fire, a torment in the far right media, you always are looking at it wondering, do we need to address this?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that we are living in a time, one, that we just had an election where the same group of individuals were trying to, get Gavin Newsom recalled. And so this is the energy, right? So this is an energy of a group of individuals who have been disgruntled since Trump lost, the second bid for election for president. This is a group of individuals who we saw a 100% different type of treatment when they stormed the Capitol on January 6th. I've been in spaces as an organizer in this town and across this state and across this country. I know the smell of tear gas. I know the sound of rubber bullets. I know the sound of gunshots being shot in the air as warning shots. I know the fear of individuals being zip tied with on a bridge together because we are corralled. So I shouldn't have to know those things, right? For asserting my First Amendment right to protest and to speak out, but for some reason, the fear continues to be allowed a second chance or a second opportunity at life. And so I think that until we get a strong footing in the ways in which we address equity across the board in every system, there are going to be folks to come out of the woodworks, as we recognize with this school board meeting, individuals who were not even associated with Natomas School District. They're going to come, and they're coming hard. And we have to have the verbiage and the wherewithal to say, no, not on my watch and not today. Not ever, for that matter, but you're going to go back to your backwoods somewhere and let that shit die. And so that's all it deserves. I don't think that it deserves our energy. However, we have to stay steadfast in the fight against these kind of issues because they are very noisy. They are loud,
Yeah, I think the way you couch that is really important. And I want to drive home that these far right attacks don't matter if the neolibs / capitalists don't give it the air that it doesn't deserve.
Right. Totally.
And the problem is the neolibs and the capitalists will gladly give this the air that it does not deserve.
Right.
I think back to the Spanish Civil War. This is maybe a little silly, but our capitalist, imperial American government was refusing to allow Americans to go out to Spain to fight against fascists.
Yeah. Right.
They made it, they had this ridiculous fine. So, everyone was like, oh my God, I'm not going to, a $9,000 fine in the 1930s. That's a lot of money. And really all these people wanted to do was fight fascists. Right.
Yeah.
And when the folks who did go and fight the fascists came back to the US and enlisted in World War II to fight the fascists again with the US, with the US government, what the US government did was put them all on a list,
Yeah.
and they marked them as PAF,
Yeah.
premature anti-fascists,
Yeah.
right? So this is, again, it's a microcosm, but it's the exact same thing. It's Operation Gladio after World War II.
Right.
It's the capitalists playing ball with the fascists, with the far right, because they hate the left.
Yeah.
They despise the left. They despise people who are fighting for real change.
Yeah.
And that's really profoundly messed up to me. So I look back to, I guess, at a moment like when they came for Skylar, a couple months ago, and how this seemingly disparate group of lefty orgs came together, and they said to these, neo-lib Dems, no, you don't get to just do this. You don't get to steamroll the conversation. You don't get to claim that we are all these violent, disgusting people, because we knew that if they come for Skylar, they can come for any of us.
Anyone.
And so I think what is important is that, we had a NorCal Resist come out for him. We had the Anti-Police Terror Project come out for him. We had DSA come out for him. We had some we had major important labor groups come out for him, and the best civil rights attorneys out there. And I think we need to continue to live in that spirit and to fight for each other in the exact same way. And sorry, I feel like I've gone a little long-winded. Do either of you want to add anything before we end?
I just wanted to add that, we can connect the dots even a step further, is that we wouldn't even live in a country. So go back to the time of the Civil War and the assertion of states' rights, right? They were fighting for their right to continue to engage in a chattel slavery system. And so I connect that all the time as a historian. And when I'm thinking about the Americas and how the slave trade played out throughout the Americas. America, the US, only got maybe 10, 15% of the slaves that came in from Africa. The rest of them were sent to Central and South America, the islands. And so had it not been for a country like Haiti, little bitty Haiti, who is now in the gravest trouble right now, and we have folks at our border living under a bridge and being denied access to the most humane ask to come into this country and just have an opportunity to live. And had it not been for the fight and the revolutionary spirit of slaves in Haiti, we might be a different country, because that really and truly was the propelling of other countries fighting for and against slavery. And so I think that we as American progressives who are thinking about the historical context of where we are as American citizens, we owe a great, huge debt to little bitty old Haiti, who America, by the way, was, siding with France, and who Haiti has had to pay over the years billions of dollars in reparations. Right. And so when you put all of those things into context, and you have a natural disaster happen on this little island, and you have immigrants trying to come into the country, and we have enough room and we have enough resources, and we deny them access, right? If this were happening at the Canadian border, folks would be allowed to come in by the droves. Is the point that I'm, and the inhumanity of folks living under a bridge while trying to just get the realization of an opportunity. And so that's the grave, the big picture, right? All of these things are so connected, and we have to begin to say, okay, America, enough is enough, and we can do better, not just by our citizens, but the global world.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Because I don't think I spoke enough about sort of the anti-racist movements and how this is all fucking connected. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we could have done just like let Sonia talk about this for an hour, and it would have been like I'm sitting over here taking notes. So I certainly appreciate you spending time with us
I'm so glad we had
for
you on.
this
Yeah.
episode. And yeah, I mean, just I think in terms of like what is going on with Natomas Unified and this teacher Gabe, I don't, it can't be said better than it already has been by Sonia, but I think just to like echo, making sure this is, I think something that I often think of when we're thinking about like election time is how little I pay attention to school board candidates, how little
True.
I pay attention to like what influence as a voter we have right over the educational system in the communities of which we are a part. And this is sort of another reminder of just to stay connected and to really take those bubbles that you got to take those profiles seriously so that you can bubble in appropriately, because if we have people in those really high positions of power in the educational system that are making decisions like the ones that are being made around this situation, and are these the folks that we actually want to be making those decisions? So I think this conversation just reminds me a little bit more about it's just it's a reminder of accountability, and it's also a reminder that, or maybe not a reminder, but just like holding space, I think, throughout this hour for Gabe and for his spouse, as they have effectively been during this time removed from the community that they were so deeply connected to in their students, and in his students in the education system there, that he's obviously such a passionate teacher, and we know that the removal of one from community really does a great harm, potentially one of the biggest harms that exists. So I think just like holding space for him and for his spouse as their life is really turned upside down by just like white supremacy, systemic racism problems, that exist because we continue to do more in the interest of capital over the interest of people. So this is Sorry,
I mean, my understanding is there's no call to action or anything today.
I was going to say a call to action.
Oh, by all means, Sonia. Sorry.
Bring a call to action.
I had no idea.
Here are a couple of call to actions that I can think that just off the top of my head. School boards have the ability to fire superintendents. And because we the people elect school board members, I think that the pressure needs to go onto those school board elected officials who can then turn around and fire a superintendent of a school district. I
think there's an election coming up on the school board too. So they should all be,
they should all be worried.
Should hear from you. And like, obviously none of the threats that these white trolls in their parents' basements are doing, but like reach out to them, let them know you don't approve, and this was a phenomenal teacher. They know that, and they need to act accordingly.
Absolutely. And so that's a huge call to action. I say local elections are way more important than, the election time when we're voting for president. It's important, but I'd rather be making sure that we have someone who is fair and just at the school board level, at the superintendent's level, at our board of supervisors and city council members, sheriff and DA. I think that is going to impact you more on an everyday basis than the presidency. And so we have to think about it in that regard. I had an aunt when I graduated from college, and she was very active politically in Dallas. And she said, "Baby, you voting this year?" And I said, "No, because no one deserves my vote. No one deserves the energy that goes into trying to figure out, the good and the bad and the ugly that both parties that dominate our political system offer." And so she said, "I don't care if you ever vote for president. but I need you to go and vote for sheriff. I need you to vote for DA. I need you to serve on a jury and make sure that you keep your license up to date. So those are some things that everyday folks can do. If you have children, be interested in knowing who your school board member is, and make sure that they have an open door policy, and knock at that door, send them an email, make a phone call, because these issues are extremely important. Your child's future depends on that.
Yeah. We are out of time.
Yeah, we are.
Which is great. I won't do the whole outro.
Yeah.
But Sonia, we love you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Just phenomenal to have you here with us. And I'm sure there's more to come with this story. We will keep everyone updated. And I guess in the interim, the little things I will say is, if you want to support Voices River City, go to patreon.com/Voices River City. For as little as $5 a month, you can get our Friday episodes. Our Tuesday episodes are all free. Every Tuesday free. Friday episodes, patron only. Those are the real ones. We actually swear a lot on those, and we have a lot of fun on those.
So many swears.
So see what's happening over on the other side. That even goes for you, James O'Keefe. And then of course we are all on the socials. I'm on Twitter. I know James isn't, but I am at Kempa, YOUKNOWKEMPA.
I'm at Shan ND Stevens.
Is there a way we could find you, Sonia?
On Twitter, and I'm not often on Twitter. I am Sonia Said It. I think. No, I'm not. I take that back. I am Sonia Chariot Tubman. Paying honor to Harriet Tubman. Yeah, I changed it a while back when Harriet Tubman's movie came out. So Chariot instead of Harriet.
Okay. Can you spell it for us? The whole thing?
I don't know.
Okay.
SONIA Chariot CHAR something. IOT. Yeah, something like that. I'm going to tell you right now, it is Sonia Chariot, CHARIOTT, and then Tubman, TUBMAN.
Perfect. All right. I think that's our show. That was a really engaging and cathartic one for me. So thank you, you two. And again, Sonia, I'm sure we'll have you on again. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, bye, everyone.
All right, you all.
Okay, bye.
Don't hang up yet, Sonia.
Okay.